is aesthetically pleasing, isn't it?
No.
Heartbreakingly gorgeous. No.
No, this is the ugliest thing I've seen.
Oh, man. The ugliest thing he's seen. And you've seen a lot of things, I imagine, in your day.
In my day?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you put my age on there. I was like 134.
That's right. Mia's Mia's way ahead of the. Who's used a CSS framework like Bootstrap or Foundation or something? Yeah, what have you used? Bootstrap and Material from Google? Anybody else? Cool. Well, we're programmers, and sure, we know a little CSS, but maybe we're a little hopeless or helpless or both. So we could use a little help. So let's use a CSS framework. Let's use Foundation. The most advanced responsive front-end framework in the world. Foundation.zerb.com. I'm going to throw that in Slack. Zerb are the folks who make Foundation. I don't know. That's the only thing I know about Zerb. Okay, let's look at the docs. Foundation for sites or emails? Yeah, we want sites. Ooh, nice transition. This guy'd like to tell us about Foundation 6. That's okay. But I suppose we need to install it, huh? Installing it. Install Foundation for sites. There are many ways to install Foundation, but if you're just getting started, we have a few suggestions. You'll notice in their documentation, they have tons of videos. I think they have a video for every single feature in the whole framework. Here's a link straight to the documentation. Okay, install it with a command line tool, blah, 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 basic template, reserved template, blah, 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 CSS download, blah, 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 it's too hard, starter template, too hard. CDN links. Ooh, that sounds neat. Who knows what a CDN is? Yeah, what's a CDN? So we don't have to download their CSS and put it in our project. We can just link to it on a CDN. CDN is a content delivery network. It's a really fast, redundant, reliable server where a lot of common frameworks and libraries are stored so that you can get them from there instead of your own server, which for one thing, save you the bandwidth costs. If you have millions of people downloading your stuff, it'd be nice to save a few bytes here and there. Furthermore, if they happen to visit lots of sites that use the same CDN for the exact same version of the same library, they don't have to keep re-downloading it. So it saves them the trouble too, and the bandwidth. So we can let them host the darn thing for us. Now you'll notice there's a style sheet here and a JavaScript. We don't need Foundation's JavaScript for our purposes. We're just going to use their CSS. So you could copy this link, or we could just copy the URL out of this link. Either way, I'm going to copy it, not that, and I'll paste it in Slack when I'm done messing with it. So in our HTML, in the head, that's where we link to a style sheet. So I'll make this the very last thing in the head of my document. That would be a link element. Like an input, it is empty. There is no closing tag. The href would be the URL where that style sheet lives. Notice foundation.min.css. That means this is the minified version, like we discussed earlier. It's taken out basically every optional character and made it as short as possible. So this is as small a file as possible, but it works exactly the same way, but it saves a ton of space. So here's that link in Slack. So just throw this as the last thing in the head of your HTML. And if we didn't mess that up, when I refresh the page, the appearance should change a little. And it did. I don't know if that's a whole lot better, but it's different. The font changed. My inputs are huge. So it did work. Yay, we added foundation CSS. I'm going to commit that, as tiny as it is. Add foundation CSS. So the deal is, that CSS has a bunch of rules in it. And some of it just applies to the body or to every input on the page and so on. But most of it is based on classes. So we need to put the right classes on the right elements if we want to use their styles. So we're not going to get too carried away with that today. We'll use it a lot more tomorrow. But we'll put it in here. And, I mean, that's nice and all, but I don't like that it hugs the sides of the browser like that. So I'd like to apply my own style sheet. So let's add our very own style sheet. So create a new file. I'll call it index.css. CSS syntax is like this. Some selector, and then curly braces for a rule, and then some property, some CSS property, colon, the value, good old cornflower blue, semicolon at the end of each rule. If we want to do something else, like background color, so selector up here, the rule inside curly braces, property, colon, value, semicolon. And it is very strict about all of those things. So the selector could be any of the things we've learned. You know, it could be p-hash main. It could be, we had hash stats, space p for a p that's a descendant of stats. Any of those things are all valid selectors. And they were CSS selectors before they were used in query selector. So what do I actually want to do? I want to style the body itself. The body is just another element on the page. So just like you can grab all the paragraphs with P, you can grab the body with body. You don't quote those or anything. And I just want to add a little bit of padding. So I could say something like padding 10 pixels, 10 px. Oh shucks, nothing happened. How come nothing happened? That's right. So I created a lovely style sheet here, but I didn't tell index.html about it. So let's link to it. We'll put this after the link to Foundation, because while there are a number of factors that determine which rule takes precedence if you have more than one rule that applies to the same element, one of them is the order in which they're applied, even within the same file. But we want to make sure ours is last so we can overrule other rules more easily. So I'll make a link, href index CSS. Yep, href here, source in a script tag, unfortunately. Just one of those decisions that was made in that 10-day sprint that we have to live with. href pretty much everywhere else. Now let's see. Yay, I have a little bit of padding. That's exciting. If you did put it in the wrong order, don't. But if you did, wah, wah. Because Foundation has a rule for the body too. It sets the padding explicitly to 0. So if we put that style sheet last, it's going to overrule our rule, override our rule. Yay, best style sheet I've ever seen. I don't want to use pixels as my unit, though. I want to get cute here. I'm going to use something called a rim. Anybody happen to know what a rim is? Anybody know what an im is? Yeah, what's an im?
It's like the relative size of like M compared to what you want
Relative to what?
to an M.
To the letter M, right? So font size, basically. Capital letter M. So one rim, I don't want 10. One rim would be basically equivalent to the default font size for the entire page, which in Chrome is 16 pixels by default. So that would be 16 pixels. But if the user had their default font size set really big, it would be relative to whatever their default font size was. So we'll just use that instead of specifying pixels. Okay, makes a tiny bit of difference in this case. Not much. Beautiful, best style sheet ever. But hey, we added a style sheet and we linked to it, right? We learned about how we use selectors in this context. Basic syntax. Yeah, let's commit it. Add custom CSS. Very exciting.